Hello, everybody, and welcome to Project Life Thursdays, where I dive into my Project Life album. Here I am with the first half of my Project Life album, and I have another quick tip for you guys this week. I know I missed posting last week, and it is just summertime at our house, and the summer heat is not fun for me. It really does me in. So today, my quick tip for you is I want to share with you the way that I use these Avery Index tabs and how I stamp them, and a tip for you on how to make that go a little bit faster, because in the past I've always dreaded stamping the tabs. Sometimes I don't always have tabs on hand if I run out of them and I have to order them, so I don't always put them on when I'm actually creating the pages or putting the pages in my album. A lot of times, like you'll see here in I believe May, and I haven't done June yet, but in May I need to pop some more tabs on. But I wanted to share with you a quick way to be able to stamp these. I always stamp little phrases on them, and I used to really dread even stamping them, because changing out the stamp, like putting the stamp on, stamping the tab, taking the stamp off, picking a new stamp, going to the next tab, it always just felt very tedious. And the way I do it now is very quick. So I'm just going through the album. I'm starting by, I always now do this at the end of the album. So currently, this album goes from January until June, and I just have not done my pages for June yet. I'm running slightly behind, so I won't have those done, but I'll wait until the very end of the album when I have all of the months finished. I will slide all of my tabs on, so I just like sliding them in different spots. I take into account where the tab is for the next page in front of it or the page directly behind it, so that all the tabs stick out, because I want to use this as a decorative element, but also as a practical element for you to recognize that there is another smaller page there. Like, this is a 6x8 page that I used in, I think this is April or May that I'm doing right now, and you can see sometimes they get lost. In fact, there's one 6x8 page that I don't even realize that it's an insert, and so I will realize that as we're stamping, and I will fix it. But the tabs serve as both a practical element and then as a embellishment type item in my album. So now that I know all the tabs are there, I do have a few tabs in May that do not have the paper piece. You can cut down a paper piece to go in there, but the Avery Index tabs, I use the 2-inch tabs, and then the tabs come with the little piece of cardstock that goes inside the tab as well. So I normally just use this one stamp set. This is my favorite stamp set of all times. It is from Honeybee Stamps. It is no longer available. I can't find it anywhere. I would love to pick up a new one and just replace mine, because mine's really old. You can see it's very yellowed, but it has all of these great phrases. And then if you get the Ali Edward stamps, a lot of her stamps have phrases that will work on the Avery Index tabs. That's where I learned this technique, or this fun element, was from Ali Edward. So a lot of her stamps have phrases that will work. Not only the phrase works, but also the size works. So I'm using these two stamps, the one from Honeybee, and then I'm using one from Ali Edwards that I just happen to have sitting on my desk. So I start at the very beginning of the album. So this is the first page that has an Avery Index tab in the beginning of January. I'm going to take that tab, I'm going to slide the piece of cardstock out of the tab. I'm going to pick a stamp phrase. Usually for the very first one I do, most of the time that's going to be, the very first one is going to be my calendar, or close to my calendar. So like this one here says documented. So I'm going to stamp the first side, and then I will flip it over and stamp the back side. I'm never aiming for this to be perfect. You're going to see that sometimes it gets stamped crooked. That one didn't stamp all the way. Sometimes it will smudge. I'm never looking for the tab part to be perfect because that's the element of the tab. I feel like that's part of the charm of the tab. So then I just slide that piece of cardstock back into the tab. Now here's the quick tip. Then I go to February and I go to the very first page that has a tab in February. I slide that off and I stamp documented. So this way I'm not taking the stamp off, picking another stamp, inking it up. I'm just using that same stamp. I'm using documented. I'm going to stamp it, slide it back into February or back into the first page of February, and then I'm going to go to the first page of March. That happens to be a calendar, which is totally fine. I do try to make sure that the same stamp isn't stamping. Like, I don't want all of my calendars to say documented. Though they could. That would totally work. It wouldn't be a big deal. I do try to space it out. So I realized, like, in February, my first tabbed page was not a calendar. So I'm totally fine with this being documented again because February's calendar will have something different on it. So then here is the next one in the beginning of, this must be March. So I am going to slide that out and then stamp that. So you get the idea that I'm just stamping that same word on the first tabbed page of each month. And then you can see that stamped crooked. I always, when I pull off the cardstock piece, you can see that I pull two off. They're perforated, so you just pull them apart, and then I always keep two together and I just fold it. The other thing is that I always lose the sheets of perforated cardstock, so I've got to find that and fill in May. And then also once I get photos in for June, I'll have to do June as well, but it'll be easy to do the last 2 months. That won't be too hard. So now I'm going to pick a different phrase. I'm going to attach that to my block, and then I'm going to do the second page in January that has a tab. So this is now a new phrase. This one says, kind of love this. This is from the Ali Edwards stamp. I used the phrase kind of love this. That's from the XOXO stamp set, and that was, I think we got that in February. So then it says kind of love this. Then I'm going to flip to, so that's January. So then I will go to February, and the first tab in February is my calendar. So that's different than the documented that January has, and then also that March has. So it's a little bit different. Now, nobody probably other than myself would realize if a calendar had the same stamp on it, because nobody's really paying attention, right? When somebody's looking through your album, then they're just looking at the photos, they're reading the journaling, they're seeing it. They're probably not keeping tabs on how perfect you've done something, or if you've repeated something. Or I always say this about the embellishments. I like to use a lot of hearts, a lot of stars. Nobody's looking through my albums saying to me, wow, you really use hearts too much. None of my family cares. Like, if there's a heart, in Easter, like, nobody's like, you should have used an Easter egg embellishment. So it's probably more me. I just like to mix it up, and that's what I prefer. And this is a really easy way. So if I come to, like, the calendar is when I run into that the most. So if I come to a month where the calendar, I feel like, is getting the same stamp because it's like the first page of every month, then I will just skip it and then just mix it up a little bit. So again, nobody cares. I promise you. So then I'm going to just keep doing that. And that is how I do my Avery Index tabs. I get my Avery Index tabs from Amazon. I get the 2-inch Avery Index tabs, and they have the tabs. I usually get several packets at once. I think I get like 3 or 4 packages at once, and I use quite a bit of them. You can see on every page that is smaller than 12 by 12, I have an Avery Index tab on it. Sometimes I put the Avery Index tab on top. So I've done that where I've done it on the top of the 8.5 by 11 calendar. And so the tab sticks out at the top. That is really fun to do as well. You could also color coat these. You could add some ink to the actual cardstock portion and then have like, if your color theme for February was all red, then you could color those red with a marker or with your ink pad, or you could cut red cardstock and then you could stamp with white ink. I use VersaFine black ink. It's what I prefer to stamp with when I have these smaller word phrases. I prefer the Versamark Fine. And I will link that stuff in the description below. I get my VersaFine from SimonsSaysStamps.com, or you can get that from Amazon. I get my Avery Index Tabs from Amazon. My clear blocks are Stampin' Up, so I just have this really tiny long clear block, which works perfect. I do prefer the Stampin' Up clear blocks because they have little grooves for your fingers, and I feel like it makes it a nice, the ability to stamp is a little bit nicer. I have better control over it. So those are the supplies I use. Again, I just then slide these in, and you can see it's very quick. When I finished filming this portion, I literally just had one other tab to stamp, and that was it, other than May and June. So you can see it goes fast, and it goes much faster than if you are switching out the phrases every page. If you switch out your phrase and then you turn the page and you switch out your phrase, it gets a little bit tedious. So the next thing I want to show you really quickly before I wrap this video up is if you put an Avery Index tab on a page and you close up a pocket and you need to get into the pocket, you need to pull something out, I want to show you how to do that. So right here, you can see that I have an index tab already on there. And if I needed to get into that pocket, I wouldn't be able to because that Avery Index sticky part is covering it. So all you're going to do is on the side where the pocket opens, so you want to make sure you're doing this on the side of the pocket that opens, you're going to take your really sharp snips, you're going to slide it up under the sticky part of the tab, and you're going to snip it, and then you can get in and out. Then you can pull all of that stuff out of there. So you can pull the cards from behind, or you can pull the card or photo from above. There is a little bit of a sticky residue when you do that is on that tab. It never bothers me. It doesn't do anything. It's totally fine. Once you put your photo or your card back in, it will totally be fine. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tip. This is quick tip number 2 for your project life albums. I will be doing a quick tip on large photos and how I print those for my album. I've gotten a lot of questions on how I do that and where I get those printed, so I will do that. On the screen here are 2 additional videos. You can check those out if you would like. If you are new to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe. Also, make sure you hit that like button so YouTube will be nice to me. I will be back in my next video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.